By popular demand, new dates and tickets to Broadway's biggest blockbuster have been released. MTF financed it.
Lisa Davies in Greymouth, thank you.
Thousands more teachers are being promised by the government to help counter a big shortage of school staff across the country.
It's not clear when re-entry work will resume, possibly as soon as next week, as a push for answers starts again.
Going back to Lisa now, so what is planned at the mine tomorrow?
Well, as was already planned, 120 family members are going to be bussed up to the mine. There'll be speeches up there from dignitaries and some family members. And then families will be taken up to the mine portal so they can see for themselves the work that has already been done, the 10 boreholes that have been punched through that 30-metre seal. But unfortunately for now, that crucial work is very much on hold.
Lisa Davies in Greymouth, thank you.
Thousands more teachers are being promised by the government to help counter a big shortage of school staff across the country. A $95 million fund for the plan was revealed today in a pre-budget announcement. This will go towards training more than 3,000 teachers over the next 4 years. It'll include just over 1,800 scholarships to pay fees and living costs of the trainees studying hard-to-staff subjects like maths, science and te reo. Political reporter Mikey Sherman has more details.
Back at his old university, the Education Minister bringing a pot of cash.
Today I'm announcing a funding package as part of this year's budget that's going to support thousands more teachers like you into classrooms.
A big chunk of that is scholarships, $16 million to entice graduates to work in low-decile secondary schools and $13 million to help with fees and living costs.
At the moment it's a massive financial burden, which a lot of people can't do, and I think because of that we don't actually see much diversity in who's training to be a teacher.
The government also announcing a new apprenticeship-style program encouraging people to switch careers.
If you're working, say, in a trade, and you decide that you'll go and become a hard materials teacher, then actually taking a year off to train to be a teacher is often the thing that puts them off.
But National says the extra 3,000 trainees isn't enough.
There's no way we're going to be able to get enough teachers in classrooms on the Ministry of Education's own numbers. We need 8,000 more in the next 5 years.
While the Education Minister stumped up with the cash today, there was no denying the elephant in the room. The government and teacher unions still wrestling over teacher pay.
We need to have remuneration that shows that they're valued, and we need to have a workload that is sustainable.
Meanwhile, the government plans to entice an extra 1,000 teachers from overseas with a budget of $15 million.
It just seems like a really expensive band-aid solution, and meanwhile Kiwi teachers are going, well, the money's better overseas, so I'm actually going to gap it.
Those who are signing up to teaching are looking at the pay and the conditions, and that's, it's clearly not putting them off.
Bold words from a minister hoping today's cash injection will pay off. Mikey Sherman, One News.
Rising gang tensions in South Auckland have prompted a school to issue a warning letter to parents. Police say they're aware of a note sent by Te Kura Kaupapa Māori or Otara, which reportedly details temporary increased security measures. Police say they weren't involved in the decision. It comes amid fears of a gang war after the president of Killer Bees was shot at a Harley-Davidson store in Auckland last Friday.
One News can reveal the government is planning to unveil the ins and outs of the highly anticipated cannabis referendum next week.
The vote on legalising the personal use of marijuana will be held at next year's general election. Political reporter Benedict Collins has details. He joins us now live from Parliament. Benedict, what have your sources been telling you?
Right, I've been told that the Justice Minister Andrew Little will be taking a paper to Cabinet next week on the marijuana referendum. If that all goes smoothly, the government will be making a public announcement next week and finally telling Kiwis exactly what it's proposing around the referendum on legalising cannabis. Now, the cannabis referendum was a part of the Greens confidence and supply agreement with Labor when they came into government. Now, we don't know all the details of the referendum, but I understand it's generally in line with what the Greens campaign campaigned on at the 2017 general election, and that is legalising both the possession and cultivation or growing of marijuana. Now, I spoke to the National Party this evening. They told me they understand that the government is going to set the age of access to marijuana at 20 years. And I can also tell you that the government is not looking to pass legislation before the referendum. Instead, it will have a bill that's basically ready to go if people do vote yes to legalise marijuana. Now, how likely is that? Well, in the One News Colmar Brunton poll that we carried out late last year, 46% of Kiwis said they would vote to legalise marijuana, 41% said no, and the rest, they were unsure.
Benedict, it's taken the government 18 months to get here. Why has it taken so long?
Yeah, that's right. Look, Labour, the Greens and New Zealand First, they all started basically at different positions on this. But I understand over time they've got over that impasse and basically they're all on the same page now. Look, they all basically think that drug use should be treated as a health issue and that by legalising marijuana you take it out of the hands of the criminals. But look, speaking to Nationals' Paula Bennett this evening, their drug spokesperson, she said, hey, what's the rush? Why doesn't New Zealand slow down and look to Canada and the United States and sort of learn from them as they go through legalising marijuana?
Benedict Collins, thank you.
The 9-year-old survivor of the horror crash that claimed 8 lives north of Taupo has been released from hospital. The boy's parents and 5 of his siblings were among those who died in the crash on Sunday. He was discharged from Hawke's Bay Hospital yesterday afternoon. A tangihanga for the family is being held in Hawke's Bay, with a final service and burial expected on Saturday. The crash near the small town of Atiamuri has devastated locals who say they no longer feel safe.
A woman has told One News 15 people have lost their lives in the last 6 months on roads outside her farm. Chris Chang reports.
Running past Chloe Walker's picturesque Atiamuri farm is a road that's seen so much tragedy in recent months.
I take my children to kindergarten on that road every day, and you don't feel safe.
Since November last year, there have been 15 deaths in the immediate area. 2 people died in separate crashes outside the Bullring Cafe within 4 months. 5 were killed on nearby Tirohanga Road at the start of April. The weekend's crash here took 8 more lives.
We've had a hot summer, the roads are slick as a result with the tar lifting, and you put a tiny amount of rain on those roads and they are slippery as all hell.
As well as those fatal accidents, there have been a number of non-fatal crashes along this stretch of road. Locals say that at least a couple of trucks have gone off the road in the last few months. There are calls for median barriers or rumble strips. Truck drivers believe the problems are more widespread.
In the lead up to this winter, that there's a level of concern and worry at a level we've not seen before. Not just the normal, the roads are a bit tatty here, a bit tatty there. The general truck driving fraternity is actually worried about the state of the network.
They say the road in Atiamuri is just one example of a road surface that's not up to scratch.
What's the use of putting in a guardrail next to a kilometre of road surface that's absolutely in a state of utter deterioration? You need to fix the playing surface first.
NZTA refused an on-camera interview, but in a statement said it was looking at a range of possible options for the 100-kilometre stretch of State Highway 1 between Pierere and Taupo.
My daughter, who's 4, hears about these accidents that have happened. The last one was just down the road from her kindy. And she now hears about an accident. She said, how many people have died, Mum? We shouldn't be having those kind of questions with our children.
Change that needs to come quickly, say residents, to stop more carnage on their doorstep. Chris Chang, One News.
Muslim students at Canterbury University are welcoming a closer connection to police after getting safety tips from officers on campus.
The students set up a workshop in the aftermath of the Christchurch terrorist attack. Jordan Oppert reports.
That's our goal, to be safe and feel safe.
Being safe is an ongoing concern for these Muslim students. The horror of the March terrorist attack all too fresh.
Do your people say that they feel safe?
I would be lying if everybody said they felt safe.
Now Canterbury Police Ethnic Services team are holding a campus workshop.
We need to take everything serious now, and we need to be ready.
The aim is to give practical advice and make officers more familiar.
A lot of our students are international, and They don't have any relationship with the police here. They don't know what the police is like.
In a statement, the University of Canterbury said they couldn't go into specifics about security, but they did say student safety is paramount and on-campus security is available to them 24/7. But the association, with more than 200 members, says a police presence makes a big difference.
If there's any sort of emergency, we can just call 111 and they'll be there. And based on their response on the actual incident, we're safe.
Anyone who feels unsafe or victimised is encouraged to report it, particularly online hate crime.
Whether it's racial, religious, anything, any hate crime, police will take it seriously.
If I see anything on Facebook, I'm just going to document it, because if you don't nip hate in the bud, it could fester.
It's hoped now these informal workshops will continue.
You won't be an individual effort, it will be a team effort. So this is a one good team to be in.
Jordan Oppert, One News.
The desperate call for help that turned deadly.
I heard shots. What happened?
Why the person who pulled the trigger won't face any charges.
Also, the surprising ways 5G technology could change your everyday life, including how you dress and shop for groceries.
Plus, are you tired of sitting in that office all day long? Well, how about turning that love of brewing beer into a career?
And 7 Sharp, details of an epic rescue, Hillary.
Yes, we speak to the hero who acted fast when an afternoon paddle went terribly wrong. And the PM's often commended for her eloquent and moving speeches. But like the rest of us, there's one word that gets her tongue-tied. We'll tell you what that is at 7.
Thursday's got a brand new look, and guess who's kicking it off?
She looks fantastic.
Yep, it's brand new George Clark.
Who knows what's going to happen?
After that, 3 massive egos, 1 little van.
Watch out, watch out!
Check out Gordon Gino and Fred's road trip. And more familiar faces at 9:30. I'm going to leave you here, and we'll catch up again tonight.
Awesome. So does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Does buying a special treat for an imaginary friend, say an elephant, count as sharing or spending?
ASB Get Wise, teaching kids to be cash clever in over 1,500 schools nationwide.
When there's no time for sick days, take Buckalin. It's the only natural active oral vaccine that gives everyone 3 months protection against the bacterial complications of colds, like sneezes, runny noses, sore throats and coughs. Over 100,000 Kiwis trust Buckalin. Ask your pharmacist today.
Reality is in the detail. It's a world you know, with a depth you've never seen before. It's losing yourself in a realm without limits, or one single detail that eclipses it all. See the world anew, with technology that enhances the quality of any picture. The new Samsung QLED 8K. Upgrade to reality.
Is your sense of adventure in a dish, a leap, a chuckle, or a beep? Is it somewhere you never knew existed? Wherever your sense of adventure takes you, we're here to help. Southern Cross Travel Insurance. Free your adventure.
Grab hot deals at Smith City, like big brand heat pumps from $8.99. This cozy 5-seater suite is $28.99, and a huge 10 kg Fisher & Paykel washer is $16.99. Smith City, helping Kiwis feel at home since 1918.
I was looking for some money to visit my daughter.
If you need money, borrow from other everyday people at harmony.co.nz, New Zealand's largest peer-to-peer lender, with rates from only 6.99%.
Harmony is the place to go to when you want to borrow money. A sprinkle here.
A dollop there.
A bit of passion.
Love.
And care.
Lose some sugar.
And some salt. 2 additives, let's put a halt. For food that really fits the bill.
And keeps us smiling at the till.
There's no point being in the dark.
The value's in this little mark.
It sizzles.
Melts. Oh, how it foams.
It's made of pride.
It's Countdown Zone.
It bubbles. Crunches.
How it splits.
Want to make it yours?
We can help with that.
Britain's Got Talent Series 13.
Series 13. I'm looking for some.
One lord of superstitious nonsense. I, for one, couldn't be more excited about Series 13.
The new season of Britain's Got Talent starts Friday on 1. been violent clashes between police and protesters in Paris as May Day rallies take place across Europe. Traditionally a union-led day of action, around 40,000 demonstrators marched through the French capital, smashing shop windows and throwing projectiles at officers. Riot police fired tear gas to control the crowd and made over 300 arrests. 38 people were injured, including 14 officers.
There have also been mass rallies in Venezuela by both pro- and anti-government demonstrators. In the middle, the military, which is still sticking with embattled President Nicolas Maduro.
Opposition leader Juan Guaido admitting today that his uprising needs more army defectors to win power. The BBC's Nick Bryant is in Caracas.
The opposition promised to make this the largest march in Venezuelan history. And the country's future could well be determined by whether that prophecy turns out to be true.
Everything we can to get the freedom. That is the most important. Today, tomorrow, and forever.
In the midst of these crowds, the opposition leader Juan Guaido, desperate to keep up the momentum. But his call yesterday for military leaders to switch their allegiance appears so far to have backfired. We need more military support, he admitted. Soon the march became a confrontation. This highway that cuts through the middle of the capital, for a second day, the battlefield. Both sides have called for a mass mobilization as a way of trying to influence the military. And these protesters are targeting an airbase right at the heart of Caracas. The authorities were determined to hold the line. And so far, they haven't been overwhelmed. What we're witnessing here is a battle for hearts and minds. And there haven't yet been the defections from the military that anti-government protesters were hoping for. On national television, President Maduro last night claimed victory, flanked by the military top brass. His hopes of remaining in office depend on keeping them at his side. On International Workers' Day, this socialist president summoned his supporters onto the streets. And for now at least, most of those in uniform are obeying his commands.
The US, which backs opposition leader Juan Guaido, says military action is possible if necessary. Russia, which supports President Maduro, has warned Washington against any such aggression.
More than 60 houses in Bolivia have been destroyed in a landslide on the outskirts of La Paz.